We'll need a mouse installed for the next segment to configure the software for the touchscreen. To install the USB mouse, you simply go to the back side of the COM ports and insert the USB device into one of the free USB slots. Once the mouse is installed, you need to run the NFI setup utility. This is done by double-clicking on the icon. And then we simply need to go through the setup wizard by hitting Start. And the first option is to set a baseline for the touchscreen. Select Continue, and make sure nothing's touching the screen itself, and hit the Start button. While the screen is setting its baseline, you need to be careful not to touch the screen. The screen is orientating itself to its surroundings. Next, you need to linearize the touchscreen. This is done by inserting the floppy disk that came with the screen. You need to browse to the diskette's location on the server. And open the file. The file name will be the same as the serial number of the touchscreen. And then hit Start. Wait till the screen linearizes. This may take a few minutes. Once the linearization process is complete, hit OK. And the last step is to align the touchscreen. To do this, you need to first press Start and then touch the X's on the screen. If you can touch the OK button, your screen's aligned properly. If not, you can go back and align the screen again. To adjust the sensitivity of the touchscreen, you go to the touchscreen utility and hit the interface button. Then select the sensitivity button in the lower right-hand corner. The sensitivity can then be adjusted by the arrows on the left or the right until you get the desired sensitivity that you want. The desired sensitivity is just so when you touch the screen, the cursor follows wherever you touch. If the sensitivity is too high, the cursor will actually move before you even touch the screen. If the sensitivity is too low, then the screen will have to be pushed a little bit too hard, and customers will complain about not being able to push certain buttons on the screen. Once you're satisfied, just hit the OK button, OK again, and you can exit out of the touchscreen utility. To enter the end of day screen, you simply need to push the black button in the bill dispenser compartment for 2 seconds. To change the printer paper when it's low, you need to open the printer access door. You can remove the old roll simply by pulling the paper up and out of the thermal head. You then remove the pin from the center of the old roll and insert that pin into a new roll. The end of the paper roll needs to be a clean cutoff in order for the paper to be loaded properly. In the case like this where the paper is torn, it's easiest just to use a pair of scissors and cut a clean end of the paper roll. It's easiest to load the end of the receipt paper into the printhead first, and it'll automatically feed. After it's inserted into the printhead, you roll the paper roll onto the bracket located directly behind it. Then tighten up the paper roll. To test the receipt printer and that the paper is loaded correctly, you can push the printer reset button and the paper should advance and print a test receipt. To clear the jam, you first need to remove the roll of paper. To remove the paper, you first need to remove the retaining bolt on the printhead itself.
Okay, yeah, that'll work.
Then open the hinged bracket and locate the jammed paper. To verify that all the paper has been removed from the printhead, you need to open up the printhead itself by accessing the button on the right-hand side, sliding it towards you, and opening up the printhead. The main area to look for paper is right behind the black roller and on the other side on the thermal head itself. If everything looks clear, the printhead can be closed and the bracket can be put back in place. The next step is to secure the retaining screw and reload your paper. The end of the paper roll needs to be a clean cutoff in order for the paper to be loaded properly. In the case like this where the paper is torn, it's easiest just to use a pair of scissors and cut a clean end of the paper roll. It's easiest to load the end of the receipt paper into the printhead first, and it'll automatically feed. After it's inserted into the printhead, you roll the paper roll onto the bracket located directly behind it. Then tighten up the paper roll. To test the receipt printer and that the paper is loaded correctly, you can push the printer reset button and the paper should advance and print a test receipt. To verify that nothing's jammed in the cutter, you may need to open up the printhead and remove the cutter from the printhead itself. When you look at the cutter from the front, it should look completely black. As you can see here, my cutter is jammed. To unjam the cutter, you need to manually turn the cutter by placing a small Phillips head screwdriver in an access hole on the right-hand side of the cutter. There's a viewing window on the front to line up the screwdriver, and you turn it counterclockwise until the cutter retracts itself and the area is clear of any obstructions. To put the cutter back, you have to install the pivot pin on the left-hand side, then the printhead is closed. To check the voltage on the power supply, you need to open the right-hand compartment to the Auto Sentry, remove the coin box, and locate the power supply. To check the voltage, we need to locate the screws on the front of the supply where the wires are terminated. And you're going to need a multimeter to check the voltage, and depending on your multimeter, you need to select voltage, and we're looking for DC voltage. The black lead of your meter will go on the bottom screw and the red lead on the top screw. The first module we're going to check is the 5 volts DC. To the right, we want to check the 24 volts. And then the furthest to the right is the 12 volts. In the event that a device is not working and you need to check certain voltages and you do have the voltage on the power supply but you're not getting it to the actual component, you may want to check the fuses that are located to the right of the power supply. The easiest way to check those fuses is again with the multimeter, and take your black lead and put it to one of the commons on the power supply, which would be the lower level, and then on the far right of the fuse you can take your red lead and verify that you have voltage. 5 volts is in the front, next is 12, then you have 2 rows of 24, with the last row being the heating cooling device in the back of the unit. So if everything pans out on those, then both fuses are good and both circuit breakers must be set. If the circuit breaker is not set, it will be popped up like so, and then it simply needs to be pushed back down into the run position.